Rolling Stone, Vogue, and more. Her poetry podcast, Poems to Calm Down To, trended at #1 on Spotify India and remained on the top podcast charts for 2 years. She is represented by the Transatlantic Agency, a leading North American full-service literary management company. Megha's latest novel, Our Bones in Your Throat, has just hit the shelves, adding another powerful voice to the contemporary literature. The session on She Is What She Is, Megha Rao will be in conversation with none other than Sunita Krishnan, an activist, author, and film producer, best known as the founder of Prajwala, Asia's largest institution combating sex trafficking and sex crime. Since its inception in 1996 in Hyderabad, Sunita and her organization have rescued more than 28,900 young girls and women across 12 countries and prevented 15,600 children from being forced into prostitution. A recipient of the prestigious Padma Shri, she has also been recognized by the Newsweek as one of the 150 fearless women in the world. Sunita envisions a world free of sex trafficking and exploitation, making her presence here today incredibly significant. The rapporteurs for today's sessions are Ankita Datta from Political Science and Adrita Buragohai from History. With great anticipation and enthusiasm, I now invite our esteemed panelists to begin this much-awaited session. She is what she is. We are all eager to hear from them. Thank you, and over to the panel.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Yes? Everyone had your lunch? Anyone feeling sleepy after lunch? No, right? No? Okay, please don't sleep. We have someone who sleeps only 3 hours a day sitting next to me. Why is that? Because she's doing a lot of superhero work. That's what I would call it. I don't think she's going to like that. But welcome to our session. This is Sunita ma'am's book, I Am What I Am. And it came out last year, yeah? June, I guess? June. Congratulations on that. And, you know, I'm someone who writes confessional poetry. And many times I found it, even though I do write confessional poetry a lot, it's difficult for me to get vulnerable. I'm sure that everyone feels that way, right? When you're talking about something honest, we have fears of being judged, yes? Yeah, we're scared. We're scared of opening up. But writing an autobiography, that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to talk about your life, your lived experiences, the lived experiences of people you love. How was the experience of writing an autobiography? Was it scary? Was it liberating? I'd love to know that.
So, Namaskar. Thank you, Megha, for such an inspiring question, first of all. May I request all those who are sitting behind to come forward? It's kind of intimidating to speak to khali chairs. Can I request people sitting behind to come forward? Thoda sa aage aa jaye. At least we have some eye contact. Thank you. Much appreciated. So, was it scary writing? For that, you need to know a little bit more about how I wrote it. I wrote this book in 13 days, start to end, and it was triggered by two particular instances that triggered me to write about my autobiography, and one of them was my father. He was somebody who wanted his autobiography to come out. So for 2 years, he kind of kept on telling me, you know, I want my autobiography. He used to write his journal and all that stuff. So finally, just 2 months before he died, we did get his autobiography out. And we kind of had a nice release of my dad's autobiography on our terrace. And just exactly 2 months later, in November 2021, 29th November, he died. And on the 11th day, I actually gave my dad's book. It's called as Ormagar, which means memories, to everybody who came for the memorial service. And one of the most common, reaction of everybody was, "Oh my God, we didn't know Rajakrishnan was so great. We didn't know he did so many things." For me, that was the first trigger. I said, wow, I don't want this. I don't want, after I die and dead and gone, everybody saying how great Sunitha Krishnan is. Whatever you have to tell me, you tell me now, right now on my face. Whether I'm great or I'm the devil or the demon or I'm the Devi, whichever, whatever. I want to hear it now, not after I'm dead and gone. So that was my first trigger. The second trigger was just a month later, some weird call came from Bombay. A person claiming to be a film producer called me and said, "Madam, we are doing your biopic." I said, "What biopic?" Meaning you're starting to do my biopic? What is it? "No, ma'am, everything is ready, script, everything is ready. We thought we just should inform you." I said, would you write a script without talking to me? He said, "Nee, madam, everything is there on Google now." I took I was taken aback and I spoke to my husband, Rajesh. I said, "What is there in Google about me?" He said, "Go and see YouTube. There are hundreds of biopics of Sunitha Krishnan there." That was, I think, my clinching point. I said, all these YouTube's, films about me had some start, same trigger. But then they all imagined their own stories and they were like building on from their fantasies. What Sunitha Krishnan, somebody got me raped at the age of 3, somebody got me raped at the age of 8, somebody made me that. It was all their own fantastic imagination, and that perhaps was my reason to decide conclusively, I have to tell my story and I have to say it in a way that I'm comfortable with. So writing an autobiography while taking a decision, yes, I want to do it. Then I had to take a call on what is it that I want to tell the world? How much do I want to tell the world? And what is it that I'm not interested to have a conversation about? I'm writing my autobiography at a stage when I'm already an established person in my sector. I already have a civilian honor. So does name, fame, anything come into this conversation? For me, no. For me, it was whether people can learn from my experiences, my failures, my struggles, and understand there are possibilities, there is hope. The world that I'm fighting is a very dark world. And so those 13 days became a very important transformative period. And when I say transformative period, please understand, any transformative period is not devoid of fear. Any transformative period is not devoid of pain and anguish. I went through all of that, especially what I did not, you've read my book, and you know that I was gang raped at the age of 15. And for more than 35, 37 years, and now I'm 52, while I have been a face of courage and bravery in front of the world, the pain, the scar, the shame, the guilt, and the unfairness with which you have been dealt with is somewhere there in your back of your mind. You keep suppressing it, you keep sublimating it, but it's there. So during those 13 days, there was one point when everything came out. And it came out in such a scary way. Because I started puking and I started having loose motions, and so over the 6 hours where I was just puking and puking and puking, and I was just having loose motions completely. And after that 6 hours, I was clean. So it was cathartic in many ways. It was also processing, because sometimes things happen, you don't process at the time when it happens. But when you're starting to write, then you're processing.
I think when you started writing, that was also when you were ready to process. I think this book came out at a time when you were ready to write it then.
Absolutely, because you know, you will, if you speak to my literary agent Kanish, you will know how many years he was chasing me to say, okay, do it. And I said, no, I'm not ready for it. My parents are alive, my relatives are alive. You know, there's so many things around, attached to so many things. Because my journey and my story is not about one lived experience. That of mine being gang raped is one experience that triggered a choice, a vocation to fight such lived experiences of millions of others. So I kind of chose, you know, voluntarily to actually look at pain and trauma and the entire world of crime that's about sex slavery in India and see it every day. You know, so my choice was not to, you know, kind of heal and move away, but my choice was actually to heal and remain here and help the healing process for others to happen. And therefore, that means multiple and maybe thousands of other lived experiences, which was all coming back again and again in multiple ways. And when each of that came also, maybe my own milestones on just starting as one individual to now establishing one of the largest institutions in the world, fighting sex slavery, the journey of that also comes in this memoir, I Am What I Am.
I think it's very inspiring that instead of being broken by it, and I'm sure that in your own way you found yourself broken by it, but there was also this fire in you to ask more questions. Okay, so this is what happened. Now, where is this crime coming from? How can I fight that? And I can see in your book the journey of Prajwala and how it grew so much. But I think there are also people here in the audience who may be interested in knowing how things started. People who want to maybe get into activism, maybe do something, interested in changing the world in some small way, but they have no idea how to start. What would you like to say to them? What were your fears and roadblocks and failures, like you mentioned failures. What were these failures when you started out?
So Megha, first thing you need to understand is that having a good intention in your mind and lofty ideas in your mind that you want to change the world, you want to transform, you want to do that and this, cannot actually become an action until a bridge is not set between, you know, the fantasy or the intention and the action. So when I, at the age of 15, chose to fight sex trafficking and sex crime, the first thing was how? What? Meaning I don't know. So I took many years only to understand that, observing that, understanding the problem, because what happened to me is what happened to me. But now I'm looking at a larger space, meaning I'm looking at a space which is an organized crime, and I'm looking at a large number of people. And I'm just a teenager. So for 2 years, from 15 to 17, I only observed the problem. I went to red light areas, I went to brothels, I was just observing how the crime unfolds here. Interestingly, my first rescue was at the age of 17.
Yeah, you mentioned that in your book. Yeah.
And that was an interesting rescue because it opened my eyes to several things, including changing some of the stereotypes that I had built around women in prostitution. Because in that rescue, my partners were women in prostitution who had identified this girl. So
they called you, right?
Yes.
You were hanging around there.
So I kind of understood, you know, here is a group that can actually be part of changing the situation. And they can actually take a lead there. And that was my first lessons. Having said that, you know, even though I knew this is my journey and I kind of accumulated skills and the necessary education, so I chose to do a master's in social work. I chose to take up medical and psychiatry as my specialization and things like that. Finally, when I had to start the organization, starting a social entrepreneurship or a social enterprise, you know. It's not just, oh, I have a great idea and I want to do it. It means management, it means fundraising, it means legal compliances, it means whole lot of money management, human management, partnership, collaborations and everything. So I had to learn all of that. I stumbled multiple times. Like for example, the rescue work. When I started Prajwala, I believe that I can be 250% hero. In my eyes, I was a superhero in terms of I can do the rescue myself. I didn't believe in the police. Absolutely not. Maybe because I was jailed and I was in the central jail in Bangalore for protesting, and I was there for 20 days.
This was the beauty pageant one.
The beauty pageant one. So, because of which I saw the side of the police from another side, and 2 years that I was observing all the red light area, I would actually see the police going and taking the weekly haftas and all that stuff. So my perception of police was they are part of the problem. So I will not, I will not associate with them. So every rescue that I did in the initial period of my starting the organization, I did it myself. I went in like a James Bond activity, fully armed. I will go inside, put the child out, run out, and then I will have my first team member was a former pimp. So we would arrange a lot of garis, several autos and all that stuff, and we will jump from one auto to another auto to another, and one was feeling so good about it. I would get beaten up. The pimps would beat me up and my nose would be bleeding, my ears would be bleeding, my leg would be broken, my back would be hurt, and I'm feeling like a hero. Wow, I've done my bit, and then I would not even go to the hospital because all these became like a feather in my cap, like, oh my God. See,
they became like war wounds.
Yeah, so war wounds and everything. And, sometimes, when you're young, you create your own halos, you want to be like a hero, and I was all hero for myself. I think it went on for a few months, I would say, till one of my team member was murdered right in front of me. That is when I had a reality check. I said, this is not the way a rescue should be done. There are people trained for a rescue, and that's what the police force is about.
And this was during a rescue?
Yes,
okay.
Just after a rescue.
Okay.
So, I learned the hard way the nuances of partnership. I learned the hard way to trust the criminal justice system. I learned the hard way to work with the system. Because when I actually started engaging with the police, I realized not all of them are corrupt.
Yeah.
There are good people. There are also bad people, but there is a huge number which is like a fence sitter, neither here nor there.
Basically, you learn that you can't work alone.
Exactly. And that is when, you start engaging with people, which is also is a skill. Because when you engage with people, you have to bring down your damn ego. And your own halos have to be first removed. All the crowns that you have kept on your own head has to be taken and kept aside and say, okay, now we are equals. I give this, you give this, and let's work together. That itself is a lot of skilling. So I think any young person needs to understand that intentions alone will not help you. You need to be skilled for it. You need to have the right kind of aptitude, because this is a field where you are constantly challenged for fulfillment. Because, for example, my work is to rescue girls from brothels. And I face a very ironic situation. At one end, there are people who lose because of me. The pimps, the traffickers, they are hitting me because I have taken away their revenue from them. Because every girl that I remove from the brothel is a loss of money for them. Then there are people who are connected to them, they are also hitting you. In one of the most paradoxical situations, the person whom you have rescued and whom you think that you have saved and you're feeling like a savior before them, that person is also hitting you.
Now, why is that?
She's also resisting, she's also hostile to you because she is
She's scared.
indoctrinated to believe
Okay.
that if you are rescued and you're taken to a shelter home, you will be again, kept in slavery and captivity, and these people will treat you. That will be one indoctrination. The other indoctrination is the day one a girl is sold in a brothel, her photographs, her videos, everything is taken and kept. So one of the major threat is if you speak up, if you cooperate for rehabilitation, all these photographs will be released. It will go to your family. Now you have social media, but at those times in
So
96,
there are big
yeah.
consequences.
So it's big consequences. So it makes more business sense for the girl to keep quiet and resist us.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you face is hostility. Here is a girl who says, "No, I don't need you, yeah."
I think it's also the unfamiliar environment that she's stepping into.
Everything.
Even if the familiar environment
See,
was
the
bad
point
for
here
her.
is, Megha, is that she's been betrayed and put in a exploitative situation. She thinks everybody is like that. So to understand for a new person that day one when you enter here, you're not going to be, feeling like a savior, and you will not feel, oh my God, my life has become such a worthy thing. No. You will be made to feel 100 times, why did you make this choice at all? So to be prepared for it, and every space, every sector of social transformation comes with its baggage of emotional and physical consequences. To be prepared for that. So emotional preparedness, spiritual preparedness, skill preparedness, and most importantly, to know whether your aptitude fits in this kind of space. Those are the things I would advise any new person to start off. So, don't look at the space of social transformation of something like a charity. Okay, I'll go and say hello to some victims and come back, and my good deed of the day is, no, it's not. We don't need you there. You may as well sit in your house, If you want to come into this space, come prepared. Come prepared for the disappointments, come prepared for all the struggles, but also come prepared for the best of fulfillment also. The joy of restoring somebody's smile is also so fulfilling, but it will take time. It will not happen on the day one.
Yeah, and also it's just so important to not make it about virtue signaling, or important to put down that superhero crown or cape. But suppose, okay, this is a very random question, but suppose, speaking of superheroes, suppose that you had one superhero power in activism, and it could be anything, whether it's, okay, I want to be invisible so that I can walk in easily and do my rescue operation, anything. What would be that one superhero power? And you can't say, I want to sleep less. Something else.
I would like to end the demand. If a 3-year-old child is sought by an Indian man for buying sex, an Indian man feels that I want to buy sex from a 3-year-old child. That need and craving. I would love my superhero powers to curb and curtail and destroy that craving. That is what is the only thing I feel so helpless about. When in 1996, when I started my work, even seeing a 12-year-old, you would cringe, oh my God, so young. Today in 2025, I've seen 6 months babies being sold for sex slavery. And if there's something that I want to change, I want to change the mind of the man, which craves to have sex with little infant babies and young children, or which craves to have sex with anybody who's been bought and sold for this purpose.
Yeah. Or does
That
it
is
give their
one thing that I
consent?
would like to end.
Yeah. No, that's completely.
And maybe that
fair.
day I'll close Prajwala also. If I can get that for one moment, 1 hour of superhero, I'll do that and close Prajwala. That's it.
Okay, circling back to the book. Very curious about the title. I know, since I've read it, I know, okay, that's a very fitting title. But at the same time, it's a very powerful title. what was the process behind?
Did you tell them the title?
I Am What I Am. This is the book. It's called I Am What I Am, and yeah, we'll do it later. So, where did it come from? How did it happen?
So interestingly, Megha, when I started writing, the title of the book was Being a Survivor. That was the title of the book I gave.
I see survivor, fighter, and crusader on it, so I'm sure your publisher still wanted to keep that word.
I don't know. So my title was Being a Survivor, and in a very casual conversation, I mentioned this to a couple of associates and friends, and all of them started saying, you're not just a survivor, you are a fighter, you're that, you're this, and all that stuff. And interestingly, the same day, all this happened in a span of a couple of hours, I would say. I had this call from the State Human Rights Commission, and says, "Ma'am, there are some allegations against you." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Somebody has given a petition against you, and we just got this. Can we just forward it to you?" And they WhatsApped it. So the letter was like one of the most, funny letters. It said, "This woman is a human rights violator, and she's, coercing adult women and taking them and keeping them in her shelter home, and she's one of the most regressive, moralistic, and blah 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 blah, and all that stuff."
Do you ever get frazzled by this characterization?
No, I know who the characters are. Their names are written. They have all signed it collectively, and interestingly from the NGO sector. So it kind of was a nice reality moment when I said, there's one part of the world who looks at me like a hero, savior, survivor, crusader, blah blah blah. And then there's another part of the world who says she's a demon, she's horrible, she's a human rights violator, she's that, she's this, she's regressive, she's moralistic, and everything like that. So I just want to be just me. I am what I am, that's it. I may be a savior for some, I may be a demon for some other. And throughout my lifetime, I will be creating only enemies in my life. So that set of people will constantly look at me as villain. And some people will look at me as heroes, hopefully. So neither this matters and neither that matters. I am just what I am. With all my pettiness, my vulnerability, my goodness, my meanness, and everything. I'm just this.
I love that. I mean that's very humanizing. I think it's very important for us to see
Were you planning to either demonize me or deify me?
I think that, like you said, there are two narratives that you have come across, right? People who have sent you, these letters demonizing you, and then also people who put you on a pedestal. And I think both these cases can be dehumanizing. Even when people put you on a pedestal, that's very dehumanizing. You mentioned going to jail, and in the book as well, right now, in the book, you were protesting a beauty pageant, and I'm not gonna ask you too much about the jail part because I'm sure it comes with its own set of trauma, but I'd like to know what you think about, in general, touching upon the topic of beauty standards. And you also mentioned anorexia and all of that in the book. How do you feel about beauty standards of this day and age? I don't know. It's a very confusing topic for me. Like, I think about, should I wear makeup? Should I not wear makeup? Everything, all of it. The way women are looked at, the way we also comply to that sometimes, because it does sometimes make us feel better. But how do you feel that we can be more liberated from that?
So just giving a context to the audience, and I would definitely market my book, please read it, to get a better understanding. I protested against a Miss World pageant in 1996, and during the protest I was arrested and jailed for little less than a month, and it's from that context that she's asking. I think, Megha, a big part of us, most of us, seek a lot of external validation for what we are. And the external validation is about how we look, what our body is, the shape of her bodies, the color of her skin, and all of that. When we started protesting against the pageant, one of the major things that was bothering me, and two reasons why I got into the protest. One, of course, was the fact that I kind of realized that the beauty pageant that was being organized in Bangalore became the reason for a huge amount of sex tourism to happen in Bangalore. So for the 20 days of beauty pageant that was happening in the Miss World pageant that was happening in Bangalore, thousands of young people were being brought from different parts of the country to Bangalore. So that was my primary reason for getting involved in the protest. But also the secondary reason for my getting involved is I'd just done a massive study with NIMHANS among young people, and one of the findings of the study was practically 40 to 45% of young people between the age of 15 to 20 actually suffer from what is called as anorexia nervosa. And this comes from the need to become slim, and then it starts making you think, who is creating the standard? That this is beauty, and this is ugliness.
I think when you're already walking into a store and you see 500 beauty products there, you're like, if I don't have that, am I ugly? Is that what you're implying?
So by those standards, I'm an extremely ugly person. As I'm climbing on the stage, all of you must have noticed that I'm just 4 feet 6 inches. So much less than I could be easily called as a short human being. I prefer to call it petite to be more nicer to myself. So in any beauty standards, I'm not beautiful. So I can go cringe in, how horrible I am. My self-worth can go down. My self-confidence can go down. Because I'm allowing the world to decide for me that my beauty is about my skin, my height, my figure. In fact, that was one of the questions that I asked the model. Because we had a panel. Yeah. So because before this protests were going on, they kept an open forum, and some models were also had been invited as panelists, and we so-called protesters were also part of the panel. And so this woman was giving us a big bhashan in Gyan about, beauty pageant is beauty with brains, and they ask very important questions about something and all, about how you change the world and all the rest of it. So I heard her, whatever she said, and then I asked her very sweetly, I said, listen, I am a gold medalist from my university, and I think I'm very, very beautiful. I think I have, this is my size. You think, can I join the Miss World pageant? And you should see her face, going into a shock. She said,
Yeah, you
she
mentioned that.
Yes.
Book, yeah.
So, somewhere such pageants encourage a false construct of beauty, and unfortunately we buy it too.
And it tampers with your self-worth.
Yeah, we buy it in terms of cosmetics, we buy it because we depend so much on external validation. Not just about our beauty, but sometimes about our character too. And that's one of the things I keep repeating it everywhere.
I think it comes from the need to be accepted also, maybe.
So who has to accept you? You have to accept yourself first. You can be the only certifying authority for your character, for your beauty, and for your substance. Your identity has to be defined by you. I will not allow Megha or anybody else in this audience to say, Sunita Krishnan, you be like this, only then we accept you as Sunita Krishnan. Balls, yeah.
Yeah, you are what
I
you
am
are.
what I am because of what I have within me. And therefore, I think one of the things we need to learn is to see the beauty within ourselves and nurture it. What we are and what we have is something unique to us. And the day we start doing that, we will stop depending on external validation of what we have become. And that will change our entire being, because I believe today I've been able to do what I'm doing only because I am the most supreme being in my eyes. I am answerable to myself, I am accountable to myself, and I decide what, even if it's fail, even if it's wrong, it is my accountability. I take accountability for my life. And I think that is when you become your own person.
I love that. That's very inspiring. I don't know if you want to start taking a few questions from the audience and then go slip back into a conversation again, or do you want to do it at the end? Yeah?
Yeah. At least that will wake some people here if anybody is going to sleep. Audience, you're not allowed to sleep. You're supposed to interact. If there is any question, she might actually conclude the session. Do pass a mic if there are questions. I must say this is a unique experience. Having young people listening to anything and remaining quiet. Is there a mic, ma'am, that you can pass? If there are any, hands up.
Volunteers, please take the mic around.
You don't have to hesitate to ask questions. You're not in a class, you know that. There's a safe space.
Maybe you just can continue the conversation. How much time do we have, ma'am? Ma'am, please use a mic. I can hand over my mic if you want. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So I understand we have another 15 minutes. So if there's no questions from the audience, we will continue our conversation.
Okay. She has a question. Can
Yeah.
someone please
Can you
pass
please
the
use a
mic
mic?
here?
Or maybe I can. Can some volunteer come and take this mic from my hand and give it to her?
Hello ma'am, good afternoon. Myself Shantana Kaur from Hello ma'am, myself Shantana Kaur from English department. My question to you is the phrase that you have used, she is what she is. How does it explain the woman's autonomy, or how does it define woman as a whole? Woman's autonomy and the self-definition of a woman.
She is what she is a title given by the organizers here. I think Rahul Jain is the right target for you to ask the question.
Okay ma'am.
My book's name is I Am What I Am.
Okay ma'am, so I
So,
thought that maybe...
I Am What I Am is about me and what I chose to do with my destiny, my todays, my tomorrows, and my yesterday, and taking control of my own life in its totality, in the choices that I made, and for what I have become today. So that's what I am is, and perhaps that is what she is means. Taking control over your own life. Yeah.
Thank you ma'am.
Can you pass the mic here to this gentleman?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I have two things. First is an observation, second is a question. My observation is that in the university where I studied, my alma mater, this hall would have been jam-packed and there would not have been any end to questions from women attending the session. But I am very surprised to see that such an issue, such a burning issue, critical issue, there are no questions from women in general. This is just an observation. Second is your comment about the beauty pageant, exploitation of women during beauty pageants. I understand that beauty pageant as a process itself is exploitative in nature because they try to mold the women in a particular manner, they groom them in a particular manner, and they promote one kind of look. So that is exploitative. But the second part that you mentioned, during that time, many youngsters are they come to the venue and then probably there is a spike in the sex trade. How does it happen, ma'am? Like, what is the relation between beauty pageant and that?
So many, all mega events. Before that, sir, your observation resonates with what I think and believe right now. It's rather surprising to have there are about 50, 60 people and very young people. I would expect their minds to be awakened and questioned, but sometimes some of these subjects are such taboo subjects that you don't talk. And suddenly when people are talking, having such a candid conversation, it is also shocking and numbing. So I have a feeling that this audience is slightly trying to sink all that at this moment, and maybe afterwards they may go and talk about themselves. Having said that, any mega event, including a large football event, brings a lot of people. So when the Miss World pageant was being organized in Bangalore, over 50 lakh people were expected to come to Bangalore. And when you have visitors coming in, with it also comes demands for buying sex. And that is how sex tourism happens. So even during the FIFA World Cup also the same thing happened. Everywhere in the world when there is a big event that happens, which brings a large number of people. With that large number of people, many other commerce also. It's like when you keep a temple, na? There's a lot of other small businesses also come around it. The flower wala, that wala, this wala. And similarly, around a large event, a lot of smaller stuffs come in. It had to happen in Asian Games, it has happened in every big event that has happened. And unfortunately, when we talk about sex trade and sex trafficking, the demand in the market is for children. 45% of those who are sold in sex slavery are children, very children. So when such things happen, you see a huge number of young children being taken and trafficked to these places, and that's been happening again and again. So people like us and activists like me and NGOs start working in such places. It not only happens in events, but also the same thing happens during disasters. When there is a war, when there is a calamity, there's an earthquake, immediately traffickers start predating those places. So anywhere there is a demand generated, such supply will start happening.
If I'm allowed to speak, yeah. Can I just add something? Not add, but it's an experience from my own research background. Since I did my doctoral degree in sex trafficking. So when we talk about sex trafficking and the whole rescue paradigm, and then when we talk to the rescue traffic victims, so it's from my own personal experience and the fieldwork that I've done in Assam and Meghalaya. So I'm just quoting one of my research participants here. She was trafficked around when she was 12 years old and rescued when she was, I think, 25 or 27 years old. So she was when she was 12 years old, she was a traffic victim. But when she was rescued, she was a voluntary sex worker. So this transition that happened, and when she was rescued and when I spoke to her, she said that it's a forceful rescue that I encountered. And she talked about the space that she said that yes, I was trafficked, but when I was taken out, I no longer felt trafficked, and that's the job that I had taken for. And when I was brought here forcefully, Just to, again, when we talk about the whole idea or paradigm of rescue, rehabilitation, restoration, and so forth, this whole idea of rescuing or restoring the rights and interests of rescue traffic victims somewhere or the other gets what do I say, gets compromised in terms of, we are also as India, we are also signatory to the United Nations, where United Nations says that, we are also, the TVPA Act is there. So India has to respond to this whole rescue paradigm. So maybe somewhere this whole transitions, and where she was a traffic victim and now she is a forced rescued, forced women that was, who was rescued forcefully from the business that she was doing. Thank you.
Maybe after some
So,
time she would herself become a trafficker.
I think the first thing I would say very strongly is, please read my book. What I am will answer this question for you. There's an entire chapter dedicated to that, where we talk about, the title of the chapter is Why Position Matter, and that's a chapter that you must read. But just trying to, give you, it's a small question with a big answer. We need to use words with care. When you traffic for sex trade, what does that mean? It means betrayal. It means deficit of trust. It means getting raped. It means not getting raped once. It means getting raped at least 15 times a day, 20 times a day, till you say, yes, I will start doing it. Now, once you reach that stage of saying yes, you also, as a human being brought up in this own world, the same world, where each one of us have been taught that your honor is located on your vagina. So if the honor has been violated once, twice, thrice, 4 times, by this time you're feeling your honor is done and deal. You have lost everything. By the time the 5th customer uses you, you feel you have nothing to go back to the society, because your honor has been completely crushed and demolished. Take it? So what do? You also start recognizing some other realities. The reality that the society will not want me back. The reality that my family will not take back. We're just dealing with one particular case just now, and I can put that in context at this moment. This young girl who is in the full-blown AIDS stage in my home, and she will die any day. And her last wish is to go back to her village and die. For the last 20 days, we are begging the family, please come and see the girl once. And the family says, this is what the father tells, because I called up the father. I said, भैया आ जाइए, हम आपका टिकट भी भर देंगे, सब कुछ कर देंगे, आप आ जाओ यहाँ पे. And he says, madam, हमने तो पिंडदान कर दिया उसका. नहीं आएंगे. This is a reality that the girl knows, right? So what happens to this girl sitting here inside? She cannot come outside because you will not accept her back. She can't go to the police because there's nothing there. Can you imagine? I'm fighting for years together to get rehabilitation packages in every state. It's not happening. So what is she going back to? Nothing. So what does she do? She has to survive in this space. She has to survive in this situation, and therefore she starts normalizing exploitation. Now, will normalizing exploitation means that she has become a sex worker? When slavery was not abolished, slaves felt that was their destiny and born to be a slave. Will you say that they voluntarily became a slave? These are questions that we need to ask. Just because a person has become adult, does the trauma of the past, the violation she has gone through, the exploitation that she has gone through, does that just disappear? Just because today I'm 20 years old, 12-year-old I got raped, 12-year-old, hundreds of fellows raped me till the age of 18. Now I'm 20. Now I'm a voluntary sex worker. Does it become voluntary? Do we understand what is constrained choices? Do we understand what is learned helplessness? And do we understand our own attitude not to accept back the victims back? And why she is compelled to take up choice and say, this is my destiny, I want to do this, I want to sell myself thing. Because you're not allowed to do anything else, right? So there are layers in this issue, and I would definitely recommend you to read this book
Yeah, I don't
to
deny
understand
that.
the layers better.
I don't deny the complexity of the issue and so much layers it has, and because I researched this area, it is really a difficult area to understand and sort of contemplate on the issue. And I was also trying to think about this. I also wrote in my thesis about this idea of restrictive choice. But being from women's studies and talking about choices, I also respect what has come from her, her standpoint and what she wanted. And kept my viewpoint away from that. But yes, I do agree the context of restrictive choice, and trafficking itself has so many layers. It is really difficult for the audience also to sort of maybe such a complex issue to sort of take in and understand. Thank you.
Absolutely, and so less is done in creating exit for people. So less is done to create options and alternatives that people can choose. And options and alternatives, I'm not so talking just about livelihood. To deal also with the trauma of being violated, of rejection, of betrayal, of shame, of not acceptance, all these requires an enabling environment. Without that, even to ask somebody, do you want to be out of it, is so criminal, right?
May I just put in a few words here? First of all, congratulations, madam, for your incredible work. I haven't read it though, but then from the conversation, I'm completely convinced to get across to the book immediately. First of all, I would just like to go to Sir's observation, because we have been doing gender studies for quite some time. And what Sir had observed about this particular session, about questions not coming or observations not coming from the audience out here, I think this is a very, very common, experience that we as students of gender studies go across, because there's this concept, or maybe I should say, there is this perspective that anything related to gender, anything related to issues, gender-based violence, etc., is completely confined only to women. So unless and until we have, the male students, the male researchers researching on these areas and coming out in the open to interrogate with, activists like you and Madam Megha, I think we do not just, the real work goes in out there. So if at all there's a silence out here, this is a silence which is permeating across discipline. I mean, gender studies as a discipline. So just a small instance, I mean, if you look across the way the women's studies centers in different institutions of the country are going through, a predicament that we are all going through, is because of this kind of a silence. I mean, this is not typical only of one particular maybe organization or one particular session, primarily because the moment we talk of anything related to gender, we think that it is only the women who have to, maybe pounce on whoever the speaker is. That is one. Second, being a student of literature, I have always been intrigued with this whole idea of confessional writing. I think some of my students would resonate with what I'm wanting to know from you right now, because I have always this feeling that when a woman takes to confessional writing, because I was very much able to identify with what Megha said right at the beginning, the way you talk about confessional poetry. So how much of strategizing goes in out there while you present your life? I mean, is there any kind of, I won't like to use the word manipulation, but then is there any way in which you try to strategize your presentation? I understand the name of the book is I Am What I Am, but given that, is there any way in which you also try to kind of camouflage whatever you are trying to present? Or is it simply point blank? This is something which I would want to know.
So again, I would ask you to read the book and be the judge on how I have written. But the only comment that I will give is I did spend, I would say, hours together, a few minutes to ponder on what I want the world to know. And my truth is stark truth. And my truth is put in a matter-of-fact way. There's no drama about it. In fact, many of my friends felt very upset that there is no drama in it. You have a mic here. So, but then, for me, the question was, what is it that I want the world to do after reading this book? Is this to tell my story? Is that why I want to write this book? Or is there something that I'm asking? So, for me, that itself became very strategic. So, practically 40% of my life automatically got removed. Because I felt this doesn't make any sense to the world. For example, if you read the book, I have not mentioned a single name of a person who has harmed me.
Exactly.
I have not mentioned at all.
Yes.
I could have easily shamed hundreds of police officers, judges, political leaders who have harmed me. I've been, there have been 17 attacks on my life.
Yes.
And attacks were done by people in really mighty people sitting in mighty positions. I could have easily shamed them. But is that what I want? I didn't want that. So all those names were deleted automatically. At the same time, all the names who have helped me, supported me, including that rickshaw puller who gave me 11 rupees every day, I have mentioned. Because I wanted this book to be a book of hope, of possibilities. Yes, the problem is big. The world of sex trafficking is a world of third largest organized crime. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise. It's a few $1 billion industry. And it's a global problem with 182 countries. So if I have to write a story of Sunitha Krishnan, and Sunitha Krishnan's story is also the story of Prajwala, I want to write the story of how a possibility was made, how I saw the light in the darkness, and not about the darkness itself. So that way a lot of things were removed. Then, there are several things like family. I don't come from a family which has social workers, for example. I come from a lower middle class family where the only aspiration was get educated and get a government job. You have to get a job. Just imagine in that kind of a family, I'm a full-time volunteer till date. I have not taken a single paisa salary from my organization. It's something which they can't even digest. Bad enough that I caused them only pain and misery and humiliation by going to the jail, by getting gang rape, by getting, a million things that no family will accept. Do I want to talk about all of that? No. I didn't want to talk about it. Well, I've not camouflaged anything, but I've made my truth a little selective.
Maybe you have put everything into a perspective. Say
For
Prajwala
me,
would have been a
yeah.
focus, and around that focus you might have presented your details.
Exactly. And tomorrow when you finish the book, I want you to carry back, okay, now I've read her story, this is my takeaway, and this is what I want to do about it. That's the takeaway I want. I don't want, I've read the book, now let's put Sunitha Krishnan's photo in my house. Now she's my hero. I don't want that. I want something to come out of this, some action that you would take to change this situation. So that means that, you strategically say this not required, that not. See, because my life is a full drama here. It's a fun-filled life. I can, tell you hundreds of stories. Every minute is a story for me. So you pick what makes sense, and what doesn't make sense, you just throw it away.
Thank you. Many congratulations. Best wishes.
I think the whole point also is not to inspire people very randomly into activism. I remember having this conversation with you recently where you said it starts at home. Stand up for people and stand up for yourself at home. I think that's something I'm going to carry with me. People sitting here, if you would like to know more about Sunita ma'am's work, do read I Am What I Am. Not just based on this conversation alone. I know that it may seem a bit heavy, but at the same time, there are so many inspiring, hopeful stories. Like she said, she focuses a lot on hope. I remember reading about Viju's story. Viju was rescued, and now Viju has completed her MSc in pharmacy. And I think that
And she's married with a child, so.
that is so cute. So cute.
But the book is also about my love story. It's about how I met my husband and the amazing love story that I have. It's also about all my silly, finicky habits. Like I read Mills and Boons, I'm addicted to it. I watch First Day, First Show, all the movies. The book is also about all of that.
Yeah.
Book is also about my spiritual journey, my connections with my gods, my belief that I'm the chosen one.
And friendship. I think
Yeah,
you mentioned Joe
a
and
lot of
friends.
friendships.
Yeah.
And the extraordinary men who have shaped me. You know, I'm one person who have seen the worst of humanity. I'm also one person who have seen the worst of men in the world.
I was just about to say that. You saying that is
And
quite
I'm
interesting.
one person and in fact that's my prologue, who felt at one point that if God were to walk right in front of me, I would actually kill him or her with my bare hands. That is the kind of... So I'm all of that too. And so this book is about how I found my gods and how I understood that I'm the chosen one and I'm the blessed one. And so yeah, book is not just about the problem, it's also about me. So read it.
Very,
Yeah.
very colorful book. So many nuances, so many layers to it. One last question before.
But Megha, you know, I was very touched when you said that you read it in one single go.
I read it in one
I
sitting.
was so touched because, many others also have told me this, that this is like a thriller. It starts and it kind of, you can't stop it. But there are others also who have said that we read the prologue and then we couldn't read. It was so heavy that, you know, it took too much of time to digest. So, thank you so much for reading it in one go and, you know, making me believe that, yes, it's a readable stuff.
I think there's more impact to that now because we live in a culture where our attention span is dwindling. We have our phones. I know when I was in the 5th grade, I used to read books in a single sitting, but now I'm not capable of that. I'm reaching out for my phone. I'm going to my laptop. I'm looking around. It's a good book. I would say that it's a great book. One last question before we conclude, because I think we have overstepped. So, if not an autobiography, what would it be? I mean, in the sense that I know you're a filmmaker, you do a lot of stuff. You're a very creative person. I see that. And I want to know, if it wasn't an autobiography, would it have been a play? Would it have been a graphic novel? Like, what format?
No, an autobiography.
Only this.
Any day. I
This
love the
story
smell
is-
of paper.
Okay.
I love a print version. And I think it's one of the most permanent versions that one can print, because also I'm also a film producer and I know the limitation of the visual medium. I know the limitation of theatre. This is a space where you can be free to explore everything and have the liberty of length. You know, I choose how long my autobiography is going to be. I think this is the first 50 years of my life. I don't know how many more years I'm going to live, but maybe I'll write one more.
I love that. I'm sure you
And,
will
you know,
gather
and
enough
say,
lived experiences for that too.
you know, you asked a first question, whether was it scary when I wrote. Not when I wrote, but actually after.
It's always
Once the
fun.
book is published, and when I got rejected by publishers, that made me feel very vulnerable. That was And it felt like a personal rejection. You know?
Because you're so passionate about your work.
Yeah,
It's
and
gonna be a
especially I
personal-
remember giving it to some big time publisher, and the editors were so gung ho. They said, "Wow, ma'am, this is so good," and they were all overwhelmed. They were in tears and all the rest of it. And then they said, "We're having a meeting with our marketing team or something." And next day they called and they said, "Madam, we had a meeting with our marketing team, and they said this is not a marketable story." I can't tell you, it was so deeply painful. And I can't even, I have been somebody who's been rejected 100 times, yeah. And even today, after getting Padma Shri, I sometimes have to wait for an official for 6 or 7 hours sitting outside their office. So you know what that means, meaning you know rejection, you know being scorned. But this rejection was, so I think when writing was far easier, but when somebody rejects that writing, which is your own life, you kind of take it personally. You think, oh, is my story not good enough? Am I not, is it not worth writing it? So why did I write it? So you get into a little bit of self-doubt.
That's fair, but if it makes you feel any better, publishing is like that. It's very weird. It has happened
I'm
to me
learning.
also. In
I'm
the sense
learning.
that they
I'm
love the
learning
work,
now.
and then when it reaches the next level, where the marketing team looks at it, where it goes to the sales meeting, basically, that's when they're like, "Oh, we can't do this anymore because we can't sell it. We don't know how to position it," and that's
I'm
when
learning
as a
the hard
writer,
way that
as a
now.
writer, you ask yourself, do I want to tailor my work to be marketable, or do I want to write from an authentic space? And I think that's a very difficult question to ask yourself, but
I was clear, Megha.
Yeah.
I've written this book so that you read it. I'm not written it for my personal journal. I'm not. I put it out there because I want people to read it, and because everywhere I go for the last 30 years, 100 questions are asked by young and old. What can we do? How can we do? How can we change the world? I said, okay, yeah, now I'm telling you, how can you do it? Read it now. So nobody is reading it. So I said, oh my God, have I not written it correctly? First of all, I confess in my first acknowledgements itself that I don't know English much. So English is a borrowed language that I am using. So then you start thinking, was your English so bad that people are rejecting it? And so can you imagine the biggest shock? I nearly had a heart attack when my book got shortlisted for the best book of the year in the Kerala Literary Festival. I said, wow, did they actually shortlist me, or is it by mistake it has come? So that is how much you start berating yourself. So yeah, to that extent I made myself very vulnerable.
Writing requires that vulnerability in whatever stage, whether it's after you write and then people have to read. When people read it, you feel like, okay, what are they thinking? It's scary, but it's very fulfilling. Thank you so much, Sunitha ma'am, for all your insights. And I mean, it's been very inspiring, not just to hear you talk about your work, but also to get to know the vulnerable side of you. It makes you very, very beautifully human in my eyes. And I know everyone else feels the same way. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much for making time for us, and have a lovely day.
Ma'am, can I ask a question?
Of course. Yes.
I will go back to we have shifted to the book discussion, but I want to go back to the beauty pageant, on beauty standards. So even though we say we need to accept ourselves and everything, but we are in a society where, don't you think the pretty people have a privilege? And when even before they start interacting, they have an advantage. So doesn't it get a toll on the others? So how do we change that? For others, it's not, everyone doesn't have the confidence to be like, I am what I am. So how do you change that?
I don't know whether I understand your question well, but from whatever I understood, I think each one of us have to take responsibility for our own self. Our confidence, what we think of ourselves, has to be our own. While we have to acknowledge that external factors influence, and it actually sometimes consumes you, how we kind of limit that influence and say this much, no more. is what each one of us have to take a call on, you know. And I think one of the things that each one of us, and I hope as parents we can do it, as individuals we can do it, nurture the I in me, you know, and nurture it in such a way that I know to say, this is how much I'm going to take from you. After this, thank you so much, you know. I'm not going to be a social rebel, okay? But this is how much I'm going to allow society to define what I am, okay? I will define what I am, and that is something that doesn't happen overnight. It comes from a process, and the process has to start from you itself, which means that you have to first take a decision that now I have to go inside me. And when you do that, people around you will not like it. You know, they will all, because till now they influenced you, right? They controlled you. Now once the control is gone out of their hand, they will say, oh, she has like become big attitude, look at her arrogant. Your parents might be shouted at, see, you've given her too much of freedom, that's why she's become like this, okay? So with patiently to go through that phase and not give up on you is perhaps a journey by itself. And I believe you as a person can do it if you want to, especially because you see somebody like me has done it. And now you also can do it if you want to. But the choice is yours. Yeah.
Thank you. I also think it's not just about shutting everything out. I mean, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't wear makeup. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't go get the jewelry that you love. You should do what makes you feel beautiful, and that is perfectly valid. But what you shouldn't do is take it when someone says, oh, I don't like the way you look, or make you feel small. And that's when you need to stand up for yourself and say, no, I'm really amazing. I know I look beautiful. However that may be, whether it's fully decked out, whether it's not, you just got to stand up for yourself. And I know that in small ways we all do, and we'll start doing that. I'm going to now pass the mic to Bernali, who's going to give the vote of thanks. So over to you.
Thank you. And very rightly said, beauty standards has to be contradicted in a way. And we have to, it's time for us to stand up and say, we are what we are. As we come to the close of this thought-provoking and deeply enriching session, it's my honor and privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks on behalf of the Rugura University and the Foundation of Culture, Arts and Literature. First and foremost, I express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Sunita Krishnan, whose tireless activism and commitment to a world free of exploitation leave us all inspired. Your presence here today has been invaluable, and we are grateful to the work you continue to do, and also for steering the session with such thoughtfulness and depth, ensuring that the dialogue was both engaging and enlightening. A special thanks to our moderator, Megha Rao, for sharing her profound insight and powerful literary voice with us today. The way you interacted and had a conversation with Sunita Krishnan, it was really enriching in a way that we could encapsulate what you were trying to say, and we could really get a sense of what this book is all about. Thank you. I would also extend my gratitude to our rapporteurs who sincerely took the notes down, and with Ankita Doctor and Adrita Buragohai for their meticulous efforts in documenting the essence of this session. A heartfelt thanks to our honorable dignitaries, faculty members, students, and all the literary enthusiasts present here today. Your participation and engagement make the festival a truly engaging experience. Lastly, a big thank you to the organizing team, hall in charge, Dr. Priyanka Kakote and Kaushik Bhuya, volunteers and technical support staff who work tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth execution of this session. With this, I conclude today's session with the hope and anticipation that the conversation sparked here today will undoubtedly continue beyond this space. We look forward to seeing you in all the upcoming sessions of the second International Literature Festival. Thank you, and I, Bernali Das, signing off today, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
হেল্ল' ক মই তাতে দিব লাগে সেইকাৰণে দে হ'ব দে 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 হ'ব দে এই মোৰো সেনেকুৱাই তেনেকুৱাই প্ৰব্লেম ৰ দে পুৰা হে ঠিক আছে
I would also extend my gratitude to our reviewers and sincerely to Congress and Dr. Adrita Bulawati for their meticulous efforts in documenting the essence of this session. A heartfelt thanks to our honorable faculty members, students, and all the your participation and engagement make the festival a truly engaging experience. Lastly, a big thank you to the organizing team, Helen Shah, Dr. Priyanka Patrick, volunteers and school support staff who work tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth execution of the session. With this, I conclude today's session with the hope and anticipation that the conversations held here today will undoubtedly continue during the space. We look forward to seeing you in all the upcoming sessions of the second International Literacy Festival. Thank you, and now I'm ready to sign off today and have a wonderful day.
We will hang around for another half an hour.
Yeah.
And then we'll scoot
Madam
through.
and Nasreen, such a pleasure.
I loved your question. Yeah.
No, because
You must read my book.
I will
I've written all the researchers also. Because you know, when you ask the questionnaire, you get only 1 year of your life.
yes.
But life is so complicated and layered. And it is, I'm opposed to the word sex work itself. And it came about because of the whole journey. And what I have been lobbying in this country is create alternatives for us. Let them choose.
So what would be the politically correct term for it then? Because obviously, but even
Women in
victim,
prostitution.
but victim would also be a politically incorrect word, right?
It is not, because they are victim of exploitation. So if you want to be very, you don't want to use the word victim at all, so women in prostitution, they are adults. Because the word prostitution is defined legally. It says commercial sexual exploitation of person.
Okay.
So that explains there.
That breaks it down very accurately.
I started my journey from reading and understand with your Yes, Rekha, and also like referring to your thing. And as a student, I wanted to go and visit Prajwala. Yeah, but I couldn't for various reasons. But yeah.
And we also include visitors, that's a whole problem.
Even for research purposes.
We don't allow citizen researchers at all.
That's what.
You feel like it doesn't help, instead it harms.
Exhibits, number one. You know, and two is that thousands of so we took a call in the board that we will allow the organic research, like an NHR, okay, or something like that, which will have a larger impact. Okay, so we research. But then more than that, it's not
person to the rescuing. He's just scrutinizing us. Constantly. Watching to pounce on us. Sometimes I feel I have not mentioned this thing this person. Why don't you sit down? No, not at all. She was very skeptical about us. I could have easily by many people hundreds of just to political leaders. So she went to go and meet me. Official पद्मश्री जब आ जाते तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें करनी पड़ती हैं so she came and she very skeptical so she started talking and I said listen let's not talk in your jurisdiction last week there was a rescue that happened in the year then why don't we just meet those girls so she was asking me a side question forget it took her to my shelter which is just attached to my main office. This was a rescue done just one day before and the girl who was rescued is in her last stages of life. Her body weight would be around 20-25 kilos. We rescued